The time nears, and soon, this Earth path indicator in the capsule will begin showing John Glenn his changing positions above the world.
On my mark. Roger.
Minus 50.
3, 2, 1, mark. Roger, EPI is
minus 45. Minus 40.
Status check, pressurization.
Go.
Locks tanking.
Have a blinking high level light.
You are go. Water systems.
Go.
Range operations.
clear to launch.
Mercury capsule. Go. All pre-start panel lights are correct. The ready light is on. Eject Mercury umbilical. Oil evacuate.
Mercury umbilical clear.
Mercury evacuate.
Lights on.
All recorders too fast. T-minus 18 seconds and counting engine start.
May the wee ones be with you, Thomas.
Good Lord, ride all the way.
Godspeed, John Glenn. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Backup clock is started. Fuel 102, 101, oxygen 78, 100, amps 27. Roger, loud and clear, flight path is good, 69. Seconds. 65 and still looks real good from here. 70 seconds, leaving a nice vapor trail now. Looks real fine.
Looks good back. G's got it.
80 seconds and looks real good from here. 85. 90. 95. Flame powder is bellowing out now.
We're standing by for you.
Roger, tape is go and I am go. Our capsule is in good shape. Fuel 103, 102, oxygen 78, 100. Cabin pressure holding steady at 58. Amps is 26. All systems are go.
Roger, 20 seconds to Seco.
Seco.
Roger.
Sustainer engine cutoff.
Indicate
The moment when the final Atlas engine will shut down.
Say again.
When Friendship 7 should separate from the booster rocket and begin orbital flight.
Seco. Lots grades fired. Okay. Roger, 0G, and I feel fine. Capsule is turning around. Oh, that view is tremendous.
To John Glenn, now belongs an awesome panorama. The world curving beneath him, just as it was filmed from an earlier Mercury capsule.
And I could see the booster during turnaround just a couple of hundred yards behind me. It was beautiful.
7 orbits.
Roger. Understand go for at least 7 orbits. This is Friendship 7. Can see clear back a big cloud pattern way back across toward the Cape. Beautiful sight.
Roger, still reading loud and clear. Next transmission, Bermuda.
Roger. Understand next transmission, Bermuda. Friendship 7, Bermuda has you. Roger, Bermuda, stand by. This is Friendship 7, fuel 103, 101, oxygen 78, 100. This is very comfortable at 0G. I have nothing but very fine feeling. It just feels very normal and very good. Roger, Friendship 7. How does he look, Bermuda?
Looks real good, Cape. Surgeon reports everything okay. All systems okay. Good voice contact both ways.
Roger. Friendship 7, anything to report on control system checks? Not yet. Everything appears to be going okay. I'm now on the yaw part of the check. Going off right on schedule. Very good, very good. So far is excellent. Very good. No problems at all so far on control. Roger. Friendship 7, it's Bermuda. You're cutting out on UHF. If you read, go to HF. Roger, going. Friendship 7, Bermuda Capcom on HF. Friendship 7, Friendship 7. Friendship 7, I'll read you very weak. Give me your status on control system check, please. Friendship 7, clear Capcom. Read you. This is Friendship 7. Horizon is a brilliant blue. There, I have the mainland in sight at present time coming up on the scope. I have a beautiful view of the African coast, both in the scope and out the window. Out the window is by far the best view. Part of the Canaries was hit by clouds. I can see dust storms down there blowing across the desert. A lot of dust. It's difficult to see the ground in some areas. Over.
Friendship 7, you are fading. Tell me, over.
Friendship 7, this is Kano Capcom. I read you loud and clear. How do you read me? Over.
Roger, Kano, loud and clear.
Roger, loud and clear. What is your status? Over.
This is Friendship 7. My status is excellent. I feel fine. Over.
Roger, I monitored part of your transmission over Canary and heard your comments on the weather over Africa. We've had dusty weather here, and as far as we can see, a lot of this part of Africa is covered with dust.
So just exactly the way it looks from up here, too.
Roger, will you give us status report? Over.
Roger, this is Friendship 7, fuel 9098, oxygen 78, 100, cabin pressure holding 5.6 at present time. And preferring to take Xylo still at present time.
Roger, do you want to stand by for retro sequence time, area 1, Charlie?
Roger, going back on ASCS, yaw check, okay. It's a little different display than I had really anticipated, but it checks okay, and I can pick up yaw. I have to be about 5 degrees.
Friendship 7, you are fading rapidly.
Across Africa races Friendship 7 at 17,545 miles an hour, 300 miles a minute, 4 miles for every heartbeat of John Glenn. Friendship 7 streaks through the night of tomorrow and races toward the dawn of yesterday. Above the Indian Ocean flashes Friendship 7, far beyond human sight, seen only by the electronic instruments of the Coastal Sentry as she records the lightning passage of the man in space. John Glenn, the familiar time references of Earth no longer apply, for he journeys around our world in just 88 minutes, outracing the sun that needs 24 hours to circle the same globe.
Friendship 7, this is Musée Contact. Friendship 7, this is Musée Contact. Do read, over.
Hello, Musée Contact. This is Friendship 7, reading you loud and clear. How me?
Roger, Friendship 7, Musée Capcom. How me, over?
Roger. How you doing, Gordo? We're doing real fine up here. Everything is going very well. Over.
Very good, John. You sound good.
Roger. That was sure a short day.
Time passes rapidly, huh?
Yes, sir.
Right. Shortly, you may observe some lights down there. You want to take a check on them out to your right, over?
Roger. I'm all set to see if I can't get them in sight.
Roger. Any symptoms of vertigo or nausea at all, over?
Negative. No symptoms whatsoever. I feel fine, over.
Good show.
Roger. I do have a lights in sight on the ground, over.
Roger, understand. You're just off to your right there?
That's affirmative. Just to my right, I can see a big pattern of lights, apparently right on the coast. I can see the outline of a town and a very bright light just to the south of it.
Roger, that's Perth and Rockingham you're seeing there.
Roger, the lights show up very well, and thank everybody for turning them on, will you?
Roger, sure will, John.
UHF, do you receive, over?
Roger, Friendship 7, loud and clear. Over.
Roger, this is Friendship 7, loud and clear with you also. Are we still go from control center, over?
Roger, we're still go.
Roger, Friendship 7, all systems are go in the capsule.
Friendship 7, Grimus, if you have a chance, could you give us a blood pressure check? Over.
Roger, Friendship 7, we'll give blood pressure check. I still have some of these particles that I cannot identify coming around the capsule occasionally, over.
Roger, how big are these particles? Over.
Very small. I would indicate they're of the order of a 1/16 of an inch or smaller. They drift by the window, and I can see them against the dark sky. Just at sunrise, there were literally thousands of them. They looked like just a myriad of stars, over.
Grimus, LOS.
LOS, loss of signal. Wymus has lost contact, and Friendship 7 streaks home, an unseen comet darting across the land of its origin.
Canaveral contact, how do you copy, over?
Friendship 7 to Canaveral, read you loud and clear. How me, over?
Roger, Friendship 7, Canaveral contact, reads loud and clear. Stand by with Capcom, please.
Roger.
Roger, still reading you. 7, this is Cape Cod of Bermuda now.
Roger, this is Friendship 7.
Friendship 7, this is Bermuda Capcom.
Roger, this is Friendship 7. I'm controlling fly-by-wire at present time. I have no left jaw low thrust.
Minor trouble aboard Friendship 7. A malfunction in the automatic control system was causing the spacecraft to yaw in skid-like fashion away from its proper flight attitude. But Glenn is overriding the faulty system and now manually controls Friendship 7 on fly-by-wire, directing its movements by hand control, much like a pilot flies a plane.
On fly-by-wire at present time. Understand?
Friendship 7, this is Cano Capcom standing by.
Hello, Kano.
Friendship 7, we have telemetry solid and check all your systems out okay. We'll remind you to start pre-dock side checklist as soon as you lose contact with us.
Roger, Friendship 7.
Friendship 7, Friendship 7, this is Musée Contact. Friendship 7, this is Musée Contact. Do read, over.
This is Friendship 7 to me.
Your Friendship 7, Richey, Capcom. Will you confirm that your landing bag switch is in the off position, over?
That is affirmative. Landing bag switch is in the center off position.
Roger. You haven't had any banging noises or anything of this type at higher rates?
Negative.
Roger. They wanted this answer.
Masked behind that routine report, the first hint of potential disaster. It came when astronaut Cooper relayed a request from Mercury Control, asking Glenn to check the status lights for the capsule's landing impact bag. Glenn reports status normal, but ground stations are now receiving an ominous chilling signal, an indication that the heat shield on Friendship 7 seems to have come loose.
Friendship 7, Hawaii contact.
Hawaii, Friendship 7, over.
Friendship 7, this is Hawaii Capcom. Do you still consider yourself go for the next orbit?
Affirmative. I am go for the next orbit.
Roger, understand it. MCC confirms that they are go at the present time for third orbit.
Friendship 7, this is California contact. California contact, do you read? Over.
Hello, California contact, Friendship 7, loud and clear, how me?
Roger, Friendship 7, this is California Capcom. Read your loud and clear, John.
Roger, receiving you much better now, Wally. Very good.
John, the Aeromeds are real happy with you. You look real good up there.
All right, fine. Glad everything's working out. I feel real good, Wally. No problems at all.
Good show. We're real pleased to let you goodbye this time. We'll see you next time around. This is Mercury Control. We now have a contact with our Guaymas, Mexico station and with the Corpus Christi, Texas tracking station. The Friendship 7 spacecraft is now committed to its third orbit. This is Mercury Control. In Mercury Control at Cape Canaveral, a decision must be made, and soon. The signal pulsing down from Friendship 7 indicates still that the heat shield is loose. Could the signal be erroneous? There is no way to tell. But if it's true, then John Glenn could perish in a searing inferno when he plunges back into the atmosphere. The retro rockets that slow the spacecraft and head it back toward Earth are strapped over the shield. If they were left on after retro fire, instead of being jettisoned as in normal re-entry, then their straps might hold the shield in place before they burn off. They might possibly save Glenn from the 3,000 degrees of re-entry heat until he's deep enough into the atmosphere for its force to hold the shield in place. But the decision must be made soon. Even now, Glenn is streaking toward the United States, and he must begin the retro sequence 300 miles west of California if he's to land in the planned recovery area 700 miles south and east of Florida. We'll give you the countdown for retro sequence time, John. You're looking good.
Roger, we only have 50 seconds to retrograde, over.
That's a firm. I'll give you a mark, 45 mark.
California, this is Cape Flight.
Go ahead, Cape Flight.
We'd like to leave the package on at least through Texas. So tell him to keep his retro jettison switch off.
John, leave your retro pack on through your pass over Texas.
20 seconds.
Roger.
Five, four, three, two, one, fire.
Roger. Retros are firing.
Oh, Roger, baby.
Are they ever? It feels like I'm going back toward Hawaii.
Don't do that. You want to go on the East Coast.
Roger. Fire retro light is green.
All three here.
Roger. Roger. Retros have stopped. Hunter.
Keep your retro pack on until you pass Texas.
That's affirmative.
John.
That's real good looking flight from what we've seen.
Yes, sir. Looks good, Wally. We'll see you back east.
Right.
All right, boy.
Texas, Capcom, Cape Flight.
Go ahead, Cape Flight, go ahead.
We have decided to re-enter with the pack on.
This is Texas Capcom, Friendship 7. We are recommending that you leave the retro package on through the entire re-entry. This means that you will have to override the 05G switch, which is expected to occur at 0443.
This is Friendship 7. What is the reason for this? Do you have any reason? Over.
Not at this time. This is the judgment of Cape Flight.
Roger. Say again your instructions, please. Over.
We are recommending that the retro package not, I say again, not be jettisoned. This means that you will have to override the 05G switch, which is expected to occur at 044353. This is approximately 4.5 minutes from now. This also means that you will have to retract the scope manually. Do you understand?
Roger, understand. I will have to make a manual 05G entry when it occurs and bring the scope in manually. Is that affirmed?
That is affirmative. Friendship 7.
Roger.
Friendship 7 is escaped, over.
Go ahead, Cape, friend 7.
I recommend you go to re-entry altitude and retract the scope manually at this time.
Roger, retracting scope manually.
While you're doing that, we're not sure whether or not your landing bag is deployed. We feel it's far safer to re-enter with the retro package on. We see no difficulty at this time in that type of re-entry. Over.
Roger, understand.
7 is escape. The weather in the recovery area is excellent. 3-foot waves, only 1/10 cloud coverage, 10 miles visibility.
Roger, Friendship 7. Go ahead, Cape. You're going out.
We recommend that you... Retro pack upon reaching 1 to 1.5 G. Do you understand? Over. Amen. 7, this is Cape, transmitting blind. Recommend
Suddenly,
that you...
all contact with John Glenn and Friendship 7 is lost.
1.5 G. Over.
This is Friendship 7. I think the pack just let go.
Friendship 7, this is Cape. Do you read?
This is Friendship 7. A real fireball outside.
7, this is Cape, transmitting blind.
Hello, Cape. Friendship 7. Over.
7, this is Cape. Do you read? Over.
The furnace-like heat of re-entry has created a barrier of ionization around Friendship 7, halting all voice communication. Alone, he plunges back toward Earth, a fiery meteorite.
Hello, Cape. Friendship 7. Over.
Friendship 7, this is Cape. Do you read? Over.
Hello, Cape. Friendship 7. Do you receive? Over.
The thickening atmosphere breaks his descent, slowing Friendship 7 from 17,500 miles an hour to 1,300 miles an hour in slightly over 3 minutes. And the forces of gravity slam against John Glenn until he weighs 8 times his normal weight.
Okay, Friendship 7, do you receive? Over.
7, this is Cape, transmitting blind. Your IP is within 1 mile of the uprange destroyer. Voice call is Steelhead.
Steelhead is the code name for the destroyer Noah, waiting to recover Friendship 7. But John Glenn cannot hear the message.
Right around 4:43, flight. It was about on time.
Keep talking, Al.
Friendship 7, this is Cape. Over. Friendship 7, this is Cape. How do you read? Over. Roger, reading you loud and clear. How you doing?
My condition is good, but that was a real fireball, boy. I had great chunks of that retro pack breaking all the way through.
Very good. It did break off. Is that correct?
Roger. Roger. Altimeter off the peg indicating 80,000.
Roger, radio loud and clear.
Rocking quite a bit. I may still have some of that pack on. I can't damp it either.
The coast intercept, over.
Friendship 7 going to drogue early. It's a rocky first. Drogue came out. Drogue is out. Roger, drogue came out at 30,000 in about a 90-degree yaw.
Roger, is the drogue holding off?
Roger, drogue looks good.
Roger.
Scope did not come out.
Checklist.
Roger, pumping the scope out.
That's over.
Say again. Roger, re-entry checklist complete. Standing by for main at 10.
Roger.
Coming down on 10, snorkels are open.
Roger, understand, snorkels open.
Roger. Main chute is on green. Chute is out in race condition at 10,800 feet and beautiful chute. Chute looks good. On O2 emergency and the chute looks very good. Rate of descent has gone to about 4.2 feet per second. The chute looks very good. Hello, Mercury Recovery. This is Friendship 7. Do you receive?
Mercury, Friendship 7, this is Steelhead, loud and clear, over.
Roger, Steelhead. Friendship 7, the chute looks very good, over.
Home is the Voyager. Behind, a journey of 81,000 miles. Through 3 days and 3 nights in just 4 hours and 56 minutes. At 3:04 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friendship 7 comes to rest aboard the United States destroyer Noah, and John Glenn returns to the people of Earth. A change of clothes, a breath of cool air, a short debriefing. Then, Glenn leaves the Noah, heading for the aircraft carrier Randolph, under the golden splendor of his 4th sunset of the day. John Herschel Glenn, Jr., Lieutenant Colonel, United States Marine Corps. Married, father of 2 teenage children. Today, John Glenn and the Mercury team challenged space, and they won. John Glenn dared space. Other brave men will follow tomorrow, and in the tomorrows after that. Each step more bold as we reach out to explore the universe around us.
This film has been produced to show some of the activities, efforts, and achievements accomplished during the past year by the United States Air Force Aerospace Medical Research Laboratories in Dayton, Ohio. Prior to actual ejection from a high-performance jet aircraft, the stability of the seat must be determined. The seat is loaded aboard a cargo aircraft from which it will be dropped, occupied by a parachutist who had participated in its design. We see the seat and its occupant leaving the aircraft. The stabilization booms are already extended. In an actual ejection, they would be automatically extended as the seat separates from the aircraft. Red signal smoke generators are mounted on the booms for the purpose of facilitating photographic recording of this test. Observing the descent of the seat from the ground, we see the drogue parachute deploying at 15,000 feet or 4,600 meters. The main parachute starts to deploy, but in this particular test, it collapsed partially. The subject received an opening shock estimated at 16.5 G and lost consciousness. Fortunately, his reserve parachute was opened by the preset aneroid timer and separated him, still unconscious, from the seat. He regained consciousness a short time before landing and can be seen to be none the worse for his experience. Here we see the successful result of the preceding stability test and many others like it. This is an actual live ejection of the new seat made from an F-106 aircraft flying at 22,000 feet at a speed of 535 miles per hour. In this sequence are shown experiments of simulated weightlessness, or 0G. To produce this weightless state, an aircraft, in this case a Convair C-131, is flown through a Capillarian trajectory. Starting at 12,000 feet, the aircraft goes into a 10-degree dive until a speed of 250 knots is reached. After a pull-up at 2.5 G, a 35-degree climb results in 15 seconds at 0 G. The maneuver ends with a 35-degree dive and pull-out at 10,500 feet. In these experiments, you can see the disorientation resulting when an animal is suddenly placed in a weightless state. Cats, when dropped under normal conditions, will invariably rotate their bodies longitudinally in midair and land on their feet. This automatic reflex action is almost completely lost under weightlessness. Pigeons normally keep their bodies in a horizontal axis while in flight. These 0 G birds have lost their feeling for what is up or down and point in all directions, some even flying upside down. Muscular efforts required for functioning in the normal gravitational field of the Earth will be greatly reduced in prolonged periods of reduced or zero gravity as encountered in orbiting or space vehicles. To produce a condition of reduced gravity for periods up to 24 hours, a human subject is completely immersed in a tank of water at a temperature of 92 3/10 degrees Fahrenheit. A helmet modified to permit intake of liquid food is worn. The subject attaches himself to the bottom of the tank to prevent his rising to the surface. Communication between subject and observer is maintained constantly. The subject has now completed his 24-hour run, and after removal of his rubber suit will be subjected to several cardiovascular stress tests. Control values for these tests had previously been obtained. The tilt table test is one of the most sensitive indicators of the cardiovascular status. ECG electrodes are applied and blood pressures are recorded throughout this study. After obtaining baseline values in the horizontal position, a 12-minute test of orthostatic tolerance is performed in the vertical position. ECG and blood pressure are recorded at 1-minute intervals. At the 10th minute, the subject experienced syncope. His pulse rate is 184, blood pressure 98/96. Recovery is immediate upon tilting to the horizontal position. Next, the subject undergoes accelerative stress studies. Cardiovascular function studies are combined with psychomotor performance tasks to estimate arm strength and coordination under dynamic conditions. Heart rate is monitored. The test terminates when the subject fails to respond to the center light, indicating loss of central vision. The heat chamber test is another very sensitive and reliable indicator of cardiovascular capability. Tests are discontinued if the pulse rate reaches 150. In this test, the pulse rate rose to 135 after only 5 minutes. At 7 minutes, it stood at 145. The test was terminated at 9 minutes when the pulse rate reached 163. This test documents a greatly reduced tolerance to heat as a result of the 24-hour hypodynamic experiment. Finally, neuromuscular coordination is evaluated by using the complex coordinator. It is a light matching task using a control stick and rudder pedals to respond to roll, pitch, and yaw lights. The final score is an average of successful adjustments made during 10 successive 2-minute runs. In this test, no significant impairment of performance was observed as a result of the 24-hour immersion. The vertical deceleration tower is used to study the effect of impact on man and laboratory animals. The platform, which is being raised by a hoist, has a free fall distance of up to 30 feet and peak accelerations up to 75 G can be produced. As the platform is being raised, the tip of the 4-foot plunger can be seen below and at the back of the cart. When the cart is dropped, the deceleration is caused by the plunger displacing water out of the cylinder. The drop cart can be seen through the window in the instrumentation room. Now, when the subject is ready to be dropped, the project engineer presses the release button and the cart drops. The instruments record the accelerations and other physical data. To determine basic criteria to provide optimum protection against the abrupt acceleration of landing impact, the inclined test facility is used. The test vehicle being dropped duplicates the impact attenuation system and body restraint support system in the Project Mercury capsule. This apparatus consists of a simulated heat shield, a body support and restraint frame, and columns of crushable aluminum honeycomb to attenuate the impact. The subject is impacting at a velocity of 30 feet per second, which simulates the descent rate of the recovery parachute system. The subject and the test vehicle are instrumented to measure both the acceleration input and the response of the subject at the head and sternum. The subject is restrained by a modified lap belt shoulder harness, a forehead and chin harness, and leg retention straps. The subject is supported by a fully contoured rigid body support, which provides a 12-degree inclination of the head to torso axis. These high-speed movies, 1,000 frames per second, illustrate the relative good body restraint and support provided within this system. This subject is experiencing a short duration acceleration of 49 G. This vehicle is descending at a rate of 20 feet per second with a horizontal velocity of 20 feet per second. The experiments were conducted within the past year as a part of a research program to study the landing impact problems associated with the B-58 emergency escape capsule. They serve to illustrate the scope of the landing impact problem and the capability of the inclined test facility. This is the vertical accelerator. The objective of this research facility is to determine the effects of severe buffeting on man as may be encountered in aerospace and space operation. The facility has a maximum acceleration of 5 G, a vertical double amplitude up to 20 feet, and a frequency range up to 10 cycles per second. A performance test is being conducted by the subject being vibrated. Random movements are being programmed into the equilibrium chair, and the subject must correct these movements to maintain a zero position. A blindfold is used to eliminate the visual input to the subject's sense of equilibrium. The difference between the programmed movement and the correction is a measurement of the subject's ability to perform. A net seat, which was developed at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, is being evaluated. The vibrations are in the vertical direction and the amplitude is increased at a given rate until the subject indicates that he's reached tolerance. At 4 cycles per second, a natural frequency of the manned seat system is shown. You will note the excessive movement of the abdominal and pelvic region. At higher frequencies, the movements of this region are reduced. Research in bioastronautics is continuing at the Aerospace Medical Research Laboratories in support of the space age.
This is a press conference. April 9th, 1959, Washington, D.C. One of these 7 young men will be the first American into space. These are the astronauts. United States Project Mercury. A substantial part of the imagination, energy, and genius of the United States is being devoted to the scientific exploration of our universe. The launching pads and gantries of the Atlantic Missile Range mount many of our experiments into the very nature of creation. This launch carried an Earth satellite into orbit. Soon, before the Earth turns many hundred times, a man will climb into a capsule at the Atlantic Missile Range and be hurled headlong into space. Why? Why must man go into space? Why must he attempt this new and forbidding environment? Space with its belts of radiation, meteorites, solar winds, unknown cosmic forces. To explore his world, man has always risked the unknown. Because it is unknown, and man's nature is to know. Project Mercury is a beginning for man in space. It will take him 100 miles from the Earth. Here we think there are no radiation belts, solar winds, or unknown cosmic forces, but man, the scientist, the explorer, must see for himself. Each component of Project Mercury will be held up and measured in the unbending light of scientific truth. Will it work? Why? Does it work under load? Why not? The problem of selecting pilots to represent the United States in space was approached from the same uncompromising direction. From all of the active duty pilots in the Navy, Marines, and Air Force, the service records of 473 test pilots were selected for review. 110 met the basic qualifications. Each must be a graduate of a Navy or Air Force test pilot school, 1,500 hours of flight time, qualified in jet aircraft, an engineering background, younger than 40 at the time of selection, and 5 feet 11 or less. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration asked 69 Navy, Marine, and Air Force officers of the 110 who qualified to come to Washington for a briefing. They were interviewed, tested, and asked to volunteer for the Project Mercury mission. 6 were discovered to be too tall. 16 declined, and 47 volunteered. 32 were asked to continue through a series of capability tests which would indicate not the best man in the group, but the various degrees of qualification of each man. Two candidates reported to the Lovelace Clinic in Albuquerque, New Mexico for an exhaustive series of physical examinations. These tests were divided between those given under normal clinical procedures and a series used for the first time in Project Mercury. A series of dynamic tests designed to measure the candidates' abilities during physical stress. Laboratory studies were made in each physiological area. As military pilots, these men had passed yearly flight physicals. But here at the Lovelace Clinic, each measurable reaction of body chemistry, each physical function was measured, probed, diagnosed. What is the specific gravity of his body? What is his blood volume, water volume? What is his total body radiation count? We are listening to his heart. When the astronaut is orbiting in space, the measure of his heart's contraction and expansion will be telemetered to the Mercury tracking stations. After a week of examinations, the candidates were sent on to the Wright Air Development Center in Dayton for stress evaluation and psychological tests. This Project Mercury candidate is preparing for stress. The weight of 8 gravities will thrust upon him as he rides the human centrifuge. His reactions are studied. The results will indicate how he fared under multiple gravity forces. Did he show a tendency to pull back? No. Was his tolerance level low or was it high? Now, can we shake his equilibrium? How does this affect his pulse and blood pressure? And what about his mental balance, his imagination, his personality, motivation? How does he see the different problems of living? And how has life affected him as an individual? Test his memory, comprehension, perception, visualization. Ask him to describe himself in 100 different ways with a battery of tests. Now take him up to 65,000 feet for 1 hour in a pressure chamber. Now have him do this for 5 minutes. Then ask him to take a walk. Walk until his heart beats 180 times a minute. elevate the incline 1 degree every minute. These tests continued until all 32 men had been evaluated. Seven men emerged from this competitive purgatory as the Project Mercury astronauts. At McDonnell Aircraft, they saw a model of the space capsule they would ride into orbit. They sat in the cockpit for the first time. This is the beginning for each of them. Captain Donald K. Slayton, United States Air Force, age 35, from Sparta, Wisconsin. Lieutenant Commander Alan B. Shepard, United States Navy, age 35, from East Derry, New Hampshire. Lieutenant Commander Walter M. Schirra, Jr., United States Navy, age 36, from Wardell, New Jersey. Captain Virgil I. Grissom, United States Air Force, age 33, from Mitchell, Indiana. Lieutenant Colonel John H. Glenn, United States Marine Corps, age 38, from New Concord, Ohio. Captain Leroy G. Cooper, Jr., United States Air Force, age 32, from Carbondale, Colorado. Lieutenant Malcolm Scott Carpenter, United States Navy, age 33, from Boulder, Colorado. These officers were detailed by their services to report to the NASA at Langley Field, Virginia. Here, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration Space Task Group, under the direction of Robert Gilruth, had organized a training program for the astronauts. They were excellent students, and they had a realistic and tough-minded approach to Project Mercury. They had to know all the answers. Here, they discussed the flight tests. In the flight program, they would ride both the Redstone and the Atlas boosters. But a man would not ride either booster until the full test program was a success. The schedule included first instrumented capsules, then capsules with a monkey aboard, and then one of the seven would go into space. The schedule also provided for the problems of flying near the Earth. They must maintain their proficiency in high-performance military aircraft. Out of this training together, a strong esprit de corps developed. They all felt that this must be a team effort involving all of Project Mercury. Recognition would undoubtedly go to the man who makes the first flight. But the second, third, or fourth flights may produce far more scientific information than the first flight. Soon, all of the astronauts were busy qualifying themselves for space flight. They rode the human centrifuges of the Air Force and the Navy. Here, they trained to increase their resistance to the forces of nature that were pitted against them. But each new experience, each small physical or mental victory was backed up by hours of classroom work. The time had come to select the pressurized flight suit they would wear. All of the suits tested were air-conditioned, had an attachable helmet, and would protect the pilot from heat and from the deafening 155 decibel noise of the blastoff. The problem was to select a suit which had complete pressure integrity, which was resistant to temperature and was not too bulky, a suit which allowed comparative freedom of movement, yet a suit which was completely reliable. This modified U.S. Navy Mark IV suit worn by Shepard was selected for further testing. To get the feel of space flight controls, this trainer at NASA's Lewis Research Center in Cleveland demonstrates the possible motions of a capsule in space. While the astronauts perfect themselves for their mission, the hardware of Project Mercury is being tested, evaluated, reshaped, and tested again. Off Wallops Island, Virginia, capsule drops at high altitude test the parachute and recovery systems. At 10,000 feet, the parachute will open. The astronaut riding his capsule will land in the Atlantic recovery area off the coast of Florida. The astronaut must learn to tolerate the heating he encounters during his fall back into the atmosphere. These quartz tube lamps produce great heat. Among the astronauts, Walter Schirra is charged with the special problem of studying the capsule environment. But there are some moments of rest for the astronauts. Here, they sit in a projection room and watch the films taken of their visit to the Atlantic Missile Range, Cape Canaveral. On trips like this, each man gathers information concerning his particular assigned area of individual study. He is then responsible to the rest of the group for this information. Grissom's area of responsibility is the flight control system, including the automatic pilot. Cooper's area concerns the ballistic flights with the Redstone missile. Shepard is concerned with tracking and recovery of the capsule. Glenn has the cockpit area. Carpenter, communication and navigation. And Slayton has the responsibility for knowing Atlas and all of its systems. The possibility that trouble may develop with the Atlas or the Redstone during the countdown or during the takeoff is looked squarely in the eye by the astronauts and the engineers behind Project Mercury. This booster was not a Mercury vehicle, but imagine the worst possible situation for the astronaut, that his capsule is now mounted on top of this Atlas. The escape rocket takes the capsule away from the booster. The tower separates. The parachute opens, and the capsule lands in the sea.
Success in a pioneer mission depends on optimal human performance. And performance...
This is the voice of Dr. Theodore Benzinger at the Naval Medical Center, Bethesda, Maryland. The astronauts each take their afternoon of sweating it out in this gradient heat calorimeter.
In a temperature as hot as it is in here now for him and will later be for you, 114 degrees Fahrenheit, your internal body temperature is protected by a physiological mechanism of very high power and precision.
In the submarine carbon dioxide chamber at Bethesda, the astronauts learn that space medicine and submarine medicine have common problems. Under emergency conditions, there is a danger of the presence of unusual amounts of carbon dioxide in the space capsule or submarine hull. After 2 hours in the chamber under 3% carbon dioxide, these men are tired. But they were convinced that they could function for quite a long time. At least long enough to make a complete orbit of the Earth and then to make an emergency re-entry and landing. But before a man's life is risked in space, animals will undergo the same operational stresses. The animal research program connected with Project Mercury is an important prerequisite to research with human beings in space. The NASA research which created the individually molded couch was another step toward minimizing the hazard of injury during the Mercury mission. This is the same man, John Glenn, sitting in his couch under 14 Gs in the centrifuge at the Naval Aviation Medical Acceleration Laboratory, Johnsville, Pennsylvania. And this is Gus Grissom. The astronauts consider this experience as probably the most important phase of their space flight environmental training. Alan Shepard, as he takes the G-load of an emergency abort and landing. To be able to take this physical beating, these men must be conditioned like athletes. And the astronauts find that the physical discipline of underwater swimming is oddly effective in training toward a space mission. Navy Underwater Demolition Team 21 at Little Creek, Virginia, supervises the instruction of the astronauts. Al Shepard and Wally Schirra have just completed a half-mile swim by compass course to the beach. Underwater swimming, aside from being an excellent physical conditioner, accustoms the astronaut to a forced breathing discipline and closely approximates the condition of weightlessness, which will be encountered in orbital flight. Now, imagine, if you will, that you are watching the first Project Mercury launching at the Atlantic Missile Range, Cape Canaveral. At launch time, the manned capsule with its escape system is thrust into the sky by the 2 booster engines and 1 sustainer engine of the Atlas. At an altitude of about 50 miles, after some 2 minutes of flight, the booster engines are turned off and jettisoned. The sustainer engine continues its thrust toward orbital speed as the escape rocket fires, pulling the escape tower free of the capsule. Orbital speed will be achieved at about 100 miles altitude. Once in orbit, explosive bolts release the capsule. Separation rockets on the capsule fire, pushing the capsule away from the Atlas. Now the capsule automatic pilot rotates the capsule. If the automatic pilot fails to respond or becomes erratic, the pilot has controls to maneuver the capsule into proper orbital attitude. Through a periscope or through his window, the pilot observes the Earth below and the heavens beyond the horizon. Near the end of the 3rd orbit, when the capsule is several hundred miles west off the coast of California, the signal for re-entry is given. Retro rockets fire, causing the capsule to leave its orbital path. Now man and capsule fall, and meteor-like plunge toward the Earth. Plunging through the atmosphere, the heat shield glows white hot. The blunt end must be pointed in the line of fall. Below, patrol aircraft sweep the re-entry area with radar. At 10,000 feet, the main parachute extends, and a SOFAR bomb is released. The bomb, exploding some 3,000 feet under the ocean, provides an accurate fix. With this information, patrol aircraft and ships converge on the spot where the capsule is expected to land. When the capsule hits the water, the parachute is released and sea dye marker spreads out on the surface of the water. As the capsule floats in the sea, a signal light and automatic radio transmitter indicate the exact position. And so, before the Earth turns many hundred times, another booster will rest on the pad of the Cape. And one of the astronauts will ride here on the shoulders of Atlas. This unmanned Atlas booster and capsule proved in the flight test experiment named Big Joe that this vehicle could perform the mission. Capsule without escape tower rocketed to 100 miles and was thrust downward to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere at a speed just below the predicted re-entry speed. The capsule was recovered in the Atlantic Ocean. The tests will continue. The experiments and training will go on to put man into orbit. These are the astronauts. United States Project Mercury.
Astronaut John Glenn into orbit around the world.
Reporting to the British Broadcasting Corporation in London. The 0 hour for Colonel Glenn's launch.
En Floride, où une fois de plus, les dernières minutes de départ de l'astronaute américain John...
a contare I minuti per l'astronauta americano John Glenn al Cape Canaveral, Florida.
يتحضر مرة ثانية لدورته حول العالم.
佛罗里达州坎纳法国太空航行员约翰格林。
州ケープカナベラルではアメリカの宇宙飛行士ジョン・グレンの早期を目前に
Proyecto Mercurio han reportado que ambos, el astronauta y su cohete Friendship 7,
and report the astronaut's condition as excellent. Colonel Glenn at Cape Canaveral. And then astronaut Glenn will... Weather still remains the big question mark, but the countdown for...
John Glenn, the countdown is again underway.
With the entire world as our witness, the countdown begins at Cape Canaveral, Florida, for one of man's greatest adventures. It begins here with these men, for they are the launch team. And from now until the instant of flight, the fate of today's mission rests principally upon their skills and judgments. The countdown is their master plan, and they proceed through its ritual with unhurried deliberation. Its pages contain the timetable of order they must follow to awaken a giant machine, to test its readiness, and to prime it for the one supreme moment for which it was created.
Iso on now, meter reads 19 volts. 12 volt standby on, now meter reads 11.5. 6 volt isolated.
Minute after minute, page upon page, the count continues. And in the night beyond this blockhouse, a modified Air Force Atlas rocket now hums with restless energy beneath a Mercury spacecraft as these men usher it toward its final minutes on Earth. Today is February 20th, 1962. And today, if all goes well, the men here will launch an American astronaut into orbit around the world in a spacecraft which he has named Friendship 7. Friendship 7 awaits its pilot. And the pilot has waited 3 years for this day. 3 long, arduous years of study, of training, of waiting. And now he's ready. His name is John Glenn. Astronaut John Glenn of New Concord, Ohio, Lieutenant Colonel, United States Marine Corps. Married, father of 2 teenage children. Glenn has been a pilot over half of his 40 years, has flown in 2 wars, and is a veteran test pilot who 5 years earlier established a transcontinental flight record as the first man to average supersonic speeds across America. He volunteered for spaceflight, is one of 7 astronauts selected for Project Mercury, the man in space program directed by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Two teammates have pioneered the way into space for Glenn. Astronauts Alan Shepard and Virgil Grissom tested the Mercury spacecraft on trailblazing suborbital missions, proving the equipment and pushing the program to the threshold of orbital flight. And now, it's Glenn's turn.
Ready for pressurization?
Now to Glenn falls the challenge of man's next advance into space, for he has been chosen to cross the threshold gained by Shepard and Grissom and to orbit the world. So the countdown continues for John Glenn. And it continues beyond this room for Friendship 7. And it continues this moment around the world. These are John Glenn's ground-based co-pilots, men he knows well, with whom he's trained, and in whose judgment his life is entrusted this day. They are the flight controllers, and from the Mercury Control Center, within view of the launch complex, they make the decisions, issue the commands that will govern the course of the mission. To these men throughout the flight will flood the facts needed for decision. The scope of their responsibility of the entire operation defies comprehension. Now, this very instant, The countdown for flight continues around the world. On 3 continents, on islands, in ships and planes, in lands where it's summer and tomorrow is near, in lands where it's winter, and this day is just beginning.
Roger, how about you, recovery? Recovery, go. Roger, recovery. Roger, CTC, Mercury Control Center is go.
Northeast of Cape Canaveral, 1,000 miles into the Atlantic, dawn's early light spills over the British Crown colony of Bermuda, and Station 2 in the Mercury network proceeds with the countdown. The tracking and telemetry stations, 18 in all, form an avenue of electronic checkpoints around the world to monitor and communicate with Friendship 7 as it passes overhead.
Okay, this is Bermuda. Okay, this is Bermuda.
Roger. Telemetry, M&O.
If radar is the eyes of the station, then telemetry is the ears. Each second, telemetry will hear and record nearly 2,000 items of information radioed down from Friendship 7. And in the months to come, engineers and scientists will find in telemetry records the answers needed for the bolder space explorations of the future.
Displays and recorders have been calibrated. Roger, thank you. Flight, this is M&O.
Go ahead, M&O.
All subsystems status green.
Roger, M&O. Understand all systems green.
Latitude, 5 degrees north. Longitude, 10 degrees west. A spot in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Africa. And Station 3, the Rose Knot, waits under the late morning sun for John Glenn. Operating out of Trinidad, Rose Knot will communicate with Friendship 7 and monitor its journey as it streaks across the empty ocean and out over Africa.
Operation, this is Bridge. We're proceeding at slow speed at about 5 knots. The course is 198 through, over.
Beyond the Mercury station on Gran Canaria Island, in the Spanish archipelago off of the African coast, it's midday at Station 5 in Kano, Nigeria, deep in the continent of Africa. Flight data recorded here at Kano and at Zanzibar on Africa's east coast will relay through this transmitting station to London and then on to America. Far to the southeast of Kano, beyond the Zanzibar station, the ship's bell of the coastal sentry tolls the twilight of day in the emptiness of the Indian Ocean. To the east, some 2,500 miles from the coastal sentry, dusk blankets the network's 8th station at Mushea, near Perth, Western Australia, halfway around the world from Cape Canaveral.
And the printout, code display. Okay, that's fine. Let's just tweak it up on here.
Today, February 20th, is fast fading over the Australian tracking sites at Mushea and Woomera. And when Glenn arrives, tomorrow will greet him. But north and east across the Pacific, far beyond the Mercury station on the coral atoll called Canton Island, February 20th is just minutes old on Hawaii's garden island of Kauai And there, men prepare for the arrival of Friendship 7.
On board site and ready for a 165 check. All roger.
The transmitter is good. All roger.
Eastward again, deeper into the day that will soon awaken over the Americas. Eastward to the Gulf of California and to the Mercury station at Guaymas, Mexico.
Real good. Just waiting for liftoff. M&OTM, status green. Proceeding with pre-pass calibrations.
North of Mexico, in the pre-dawn along the west coast of the United States, the mountaintop station at Point Arguello, California, waits out the long countdown, ready to track John Glenn.
Roger, Ag 8. What is the present count? Roger.
Southeast now, to the farmlands of Texas, where the station at Corpus Christi continues its preparations for flight.
Guaymas, Cal in Texas, please.
Affirmative.
Roger. All systems, would you please commence pre-flight calibrations at this time since the countdown is progressing normally. Advise me when you have completed them.
Far to the north and east of Corpus Christi beats the heart of the worldwide Mercury network, the computing and communication center that bonds it into a working entity. This is the Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland. Through here funnels the voice and teletype communications that link the global stations to Mercury control. The computers enable men to reach judgments within the flashes of time allowed for control of a spacecraft that moves faster than a brain can react. Throughout the flight, the computers will generate recommendations on whether the mission should continue or be aborted. They will determine locations of the spacecraft, the time it should begin re-entry, the point at which it will land. And the most vital of these findings will be transmitted instantaneously to Cape Canaveral. Around the world, all is ready. The men, the stations, the space vehicle. And now reporters learn from the astronaut's information officer if the most vital of all elements is ready, the man himself, John Glenn. What are the thoughts of a man about to rocket into history? Glenn is the astronaut, the man who will challenge space. But he is just one member of an international scientific endeavor that requires the genius and skills of some 40,000 other men and women scattered throughout the world. From the engineers and technicians who produce the space vehicle to the crews now preparing to launch it. From the tracking experts who will chart his voyage around the globe to the sailors now waiting at sea to recover him. Behind this day stands years of preparation, of research and testing, of planning and training. And the purpose of it all is knowledge. Knowledge of space and of how effectively man and spacecraft can function together in its hostile environment. Knowledge that will serve as the basis for space explorations of the future. Hard-won knowledge of benefit to all men. Bought by sacrifice and dedication and courage. Just a handful of minutes remain until the spacecraft crew on the service tower call for the pilot of Friendship 7.
Okay, John? You're ready. Yeah, got everything set, Joe? All set. Not on, Dr. Juan. Okay, all set. Yeah, okay. Oh, that's right.
The sound of John Glenn's life. His heartbeat, you hear, will flow from Friendship 7 throughout the flight, informing those on the ground how well he endures the trials ahead. Into the soft light of this Florida dawn emerges Friendship 7, making its debut to the day of its destiny. The Mercury Atlas stands alone, waiting to depart this Earth. 250,000 pounds of rocket with thrust equal to 3.5 million horsepower. All to hurtle a 168-pound astronaut into space.
All stations. Gantry is in launch position. AMR, CNS band beacons are on. Start interrogation in 1 minute.
The countdown sweeps closer to the moment of flight, and recovery teams here at the Cape and around the world ready themselves to aid the astronaut. Above all else, John Glenn's safety is paramount, the dictating factor in all planning. Never in all of history have so many people shared, without censorship, an adventure of such magnitude. Through all news media in all languages, all the peoples of the world are witness to this exploration of space, to its success or failure.
T-minus 15 minutes. Mark, T-minus 15 minutes and counting. There will be no smoking and a blockhouse until further notice.
Okay, this is Bermuda.
Go ahead.
We just logged on our computer. Stand by for an estimate.
Roger. Standing by, Bermuda.
Estimate 5 minutes, okay? 5 minutes.
You want us to continue to count?
I suggest you take it down to T-minus 7. We may have it by then.
Roger. You want us to hold, Bermuda?
We would like to hold at 7 and rerun a B-sim. We lost our main power on the computer and we just want to check that nothing else has gone wrong.
What do you estimate?
Somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes, Cape.
Can't you expedite?
Make it 5.
All stations are holding at 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Estimate 5 minutes.
We just got to go.
You ready? Are you ready to continue?
Green. Okay, go ahead. Green. Go ahead, Cape.
Your attention, please. On my mark, we will pick up the count at T-minus
6 minutes and 30 seconds in counting.